I watched my friend get shot in the neck. Yeah, that's what happened. I just want to say that he was publicly executed again before the world. The question is why, right?
September 10th, Utah Valley University. The air looks ordinary, but the atmosphere is anything but calm. Thousands crowd shoulder to shoulder on the open quad, buzzing with energy, waving hats, streaming live, desperate to be part of the moment. It's not just a speech, it feels like a spectacle, the kind of fever dream gathering America thrives on. At the center sits Charlie Kirk, cool and collected, working the crowd with his polished comeback pitch, his hands sliced through the air, his words rolling out like he's untouchable. And then, bang, a deafening crack splits the sky. At first, people freeze, unsure if it's real, but the truth hits in an instant. A single, chillingly precise shot from somewhere unseen. Heads whip around, screams explode, chaos erupts. Kirk jolts sideways, collapsing in his chair as red stains spread across his collar. Security storms the stage while panicked fans dive for cover, ducking and trampling to escape the nightmare. In less than a minute, the upbeat rally is transformed into pure horror. An American campus now turned into a live-streamed crime scene. Phones shake in trembling hands, broadcasting raw confusion to the world in real time. And just like that, history shifts. This isn't just violence, it's theater. It's a warning.
Whenever the authority says something and not prod any further, we can't allow that to happen here. I won't allow that to happen here because this something terrible has traumatized the world, okay? And I feel as though when it comes to this, the media, the government, the talking heads, everyone is confusing us about what actually took place with.
It's a viral nightmare exploding across every feed. Some call it nothing more than a lone sniper's bullet, but others whisper darker words. This feels like the opening act of something bigger. The country holds its breath, but silence can't last long. Suspicion races faster than the news ticker. Then all eyes swing to one person, Kirk's widow, Erica, first spotted at the hospital, then later at a makeshift memorial. She stands front and center, the camera's hungry for every move. Her face, composed, her body, controlled. Tears barely touch her eyes. To many, she looks too rehearsed, too perfect. Her statement to the press is crisp, almost businesslike, thanking first responders for their swift, heroic actions, and vowing her husband's mission will carry on. Erica's grief doesn't look raw or messy. It looks staged, almost vintage, the kind of mourning that belongs in old black and white photos, polished and dignified, like a senator's wife keeping her chin high for the cameras. Even in heartbreak, she projects grace, guarding their two children with a steady hand, determined to protect the memory of her late husband while preserving the respectability of the empire he built.
I want to be very clear that I believe, in fact, I know that towards the end, Charlie was fighting for custody of himself. I want to say that. I want to say that plainly, and there are lies that are being told and they need to be slapped down right now.
For a fleeting moment, the world almost buys it. Maybe this will be a quiet, classy grieving period. But that illusion shatters fast. Enter Candace Owens, storming in before the funeral flowers can even wilt. She crashes into the scene like lightning. Suddenly her face is everywhere, topping right-wing podcast charts, splashed across YouTube banners, TikTok edits looping her fiery words, trending all over X. Her show rockets to #2 on Spotify, breathing down the neck of Kirk's own slot, chasing a ghost and refusing to let his name fade away. Candace doesn't do quiet sorrow. She turns mourning into a trial by fire. Her podcast episodes sound like legal indictments. Who ordered the hit on Charlie Kirk? And they are lying about Charlie Kirk. She mixes fury with tears, throwing accusations in the same breath, her voice cutting sharper than any headline. And then comes the dagger, the phrase that leaves everyone stunned. She suggests Kirk was betrayed by his pillow. That one line hangs heavy, a shadowy shot aimed straight at Erica without ever saying her name. Candace never fully points the finger, but she doesn't have to. She dances on the razor's edge, stoking suspicion.
You're telling me that this kid who's not military trained, this guy, first of all, how did he get to the roof? How come nobody was looking? How come nobody was like, there's a direct line of sight between where he's sitting and those roofs? You guys didn't check? You don't have a drone? Like, that's insane. So he's on the roof, he shoots, he jumps from the roof, he jumps down 14.
Daring the audience to connect the dots. The result, a country split screen. On one side, Erica, standing calm and statuesque, the perfect image of composure. On the other, Candace, volcanic and raging, unleashing fiery tributes and venomous questions. No one can pretend the rift isn't real anymore. The feud has gone public, and the battle lines are drawn. Let's not forget, Candace Owens didn't just lose a friend. She lost her seat at the power table years ago. She was booted from Turning Point USA after saying things so raw they could make a Fox Nation intern choke on his kombucha. That exile still burns, and now she's back swinging with fury. She insists the official story is nothing but a fairy tale. In her version, the alleged shooter, Tyler Robinson, doesn't even fit. She says no verified footage ever caught him in action. Instead, she paints a chilling picture, the real gunman on a rooftop, kitted out in tactical gear, like a scene storyboarded by QAnon or the CIA itself. Owens keeps firing off claims, charging that the FBI is leaning on Utah authorities to rush the case to bed, burying details before questions can spread. She hammers at the holes in the record.
Like, the more they keep looking into it, the more they're like, this doesn't feel like a real... It feels super fabricated.
But here's the thing. Just like I was talking about when people are arguing on social media, it's all part of the plan. If you want...
The supposed murder weapon doesn't match eyewitness accounts. The bullet fragments are too shattered to trace, and the description of the man in custody doesn't line up with what people on the ground swear they saw. The whole narrative, she says, reeks of a staged cleanup job. But here's the brilliance of Candace. She thrives on doubt. She doesn't need airtight evidence. She fuels her audience with missing pieces, daring them to connect the dots themselves. Every unanswered question becomes a recruitment tool. She's not just mourning Charlie. She's building an army of believers, hungry to prove the story's rotten. Meanwhile, Kirk's own podcast has transformed into a digital shrine. It shoots straight to #1, packed with right-wing icons like Tucker Carlson, Glenn Beck, and J.D. Vance, each taking turns swearing vengeance, promising to dismantle enemies in Kirk's name. Their tone is righteous, clean, polished, an establishment mourning their fallen star. But Candace? She refuses to let them script the legacy. Her show surges just behind his, electric with fury, fueled by outrage, and heavy with the promise that someone close to Kirk knows more than they're admitting. That's the difference. While the others give speeches, Candace is hinting at secrets.
Toast. But she didn't call for war. Erica did not call for war. In fact, she did the exact opposite, which is what was so stunning. It was unbelievable. The forgiveness that she granted, the strength that it took for her to call for that forgiveness, it's just unmatched, and it really made a difference. And I was being serious when I tweeted that I think it was the most consequential speech in American history.
And her audience can't look away. Candace Owens was once the director of urban engagement at Turning Point USA. But after being pushed out, she's reinvented herself as something far more dangerous, an avenging angel with a microphone. She doesn't just accuse the alleged shooter, she accuses everyone, the FBI, fellow podcasters, even what she calls Zionist-controlled publications, of running a cover-up. And her claims only grow bolder. She tells her audience Kirk was under direct threat from Israeli interests, even naming billionaire Bill Ackman, alleging he made threats during some hush-hush Hamptons meeting. Ackman claps back with receipts, polite text messages with Kirk insisting, "At no time have I ever threatened Charlie." And then comes Netanyahu himself, forced to issue 2 denials, calling the rumors of Israeli involvement insane and outrageous. But for Candace and her followers, every denial just makes the story juicier. The louder the pushback, the more convinced they become that someone's hiding something. And this obsession isn't just pulled out of thin air. Eric Bowling, who once sat on Turning Point's advisory board,
information to research and to investigate, and nothing is making sense. Now, it could not be making sense because we've not arrived at the conclusion. The FBI, I will say, has recently come out and said they're looking for another person. Good, because what we have so far obviously cannot be it. I feel
admits there was a rupture years ago between Kirk and Owens. He calls it a quiet break that happened when Candace's theories got too extreme, too rabbit hole for the brand. By his account, Kirk stayed polite, but the friendship cooled to a distant handshake. That chill stings now because Owens is lobbing grenades from outside the castle walls. She has zero relationship with Erica Kirk, and in that vacuum, hostility has taken root. This doesn't feel like old friends clashing. It feels like a jilted insider storming the wake. Meanwhile, podcasts become the battleground. Even Joe Rogan, the king of swagger, suddenly drops the act mid-show when news of Kirk's shooting hits. He doesn't scream conspiracy, but he does what he does best, ask the question no one wants to hear. How does some untrained kid scale a roof, assemble a rifle, and land a perfect shot in broad daylight without anyone noticing? Rogan calls it out as absurd, and that one moment of doubt fuels his massive audience to distrust every single word coming out of the FBI or Utah police. Suspicion isn't just gossip anymore, it's currency, and confusion is paying dividends. But as the circus spins, the conservative movement begins tearing itself apart. Erica Kirk keeps trying to rise above it all.
And he was publicly executed. I want to make that clear. Charlie Kirk was publicly executed before the world. And as we are all searching for answers, the ones that are being supplied to us are not making a lot of sense. And some people, I would say, are speaking too much, are speaking on behalf of other people.
At a Kennedy Center vigil, standing with her 2 children, she quietly thanks Congress and vows to carry on Charlie's mission. She's calm, collected, almost untouchable. But then the backlash explodes from inside the faith community. Rob McCoy, Kirk's own pastor and co-chair of Turning Point's faith division, takes to social media, and even the pulpit, directly rebuking Owens by name. McCoy insists Charlie never trashed Candace, even when they disagreed. He scolds her for gossip and innuendo, pleading with her to honor Kirk with dignity instead of accusations. He writes, Charlie would never have treated Candace or her family this way had the tragedy been hers. His words were meant to cool the fire, but instead, they land like a plea for quiet at a riot. Owens only grows louder. She tells her audience, be suspicious of anyone already telling you to stop asking questions about Charlie's assassination. Every time Erica steps forward with dignity, pledging that anger won't corrupt her husband's mission, Candace answers with the digital equivalent of a war drum. She warns her millions that silence equals complicity. Her message is blunt. The real scandal is how quickly the establishment wants everyone to move on. And so the stage splits in two. On one side, the widow standing tall, refusing to be baited. On the other, the outcast podcaster screaming that everything is a cover-up. It's impossible to look away. Who is real? Who is righteous? Is grief more authentic in silence or in rage? Erica whispers that her husband's mission will carry on. Owens roars back that the only thing more dangerous than a bullet is letting this story die here. And just as the dust hasn't even settled on Utah Valley's blood-stained grass, Turning Point USA roars back into action like nothing happened. Charlie's American comeback tour doesn't even pause. It keeps rolling. Louder, flashier, more relentless than before. There was no pause, no real investigation, no time for collective grief. Instead, the whole thing mutated into a showcase, an open audition for the next conservative superstar. The campus stage is filled with a star-studded roster of names, each one acting like they were carrying Charlie Kirk's torch while secretly angling to claim the spotlight. Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Vivek Ramaswamy, they paraded in one after another, cosplaying Kirk like it was a costume contest. Commentators couldn't resist calling it exactly that, cosplaying Kirk, and once you hear it, you can't unsee it. Rows of panels stacked with Kirk's former allies stood beneath giant banners of his face, promising to honor his mission. But watch closely, and you see the ambition leaking through. Each speaker lifts the torch just a little higher. Each voice pushes a little louder, as if one more camera angle could crown them heir to the empire. The chill was undeniable. The tribute blurred into ambition, and Kirk's absence transformed into a wide-open vacuum. Everyone wanted in, but nowhere was this spectacle sharper than at Kirk's own memorial. Arizona's State Farm Stadium was packed, not with quiet mourning, but with a rally-like crowd. Tucker Carlson's eulogy didn't just blur the line between faith and politics, it bulldozed it. He compared Kirk's fate to Jesus himself, and then dropped a cryptic remark about a bunch of guys eating hummus, thinking about what to do about this guy telling the truth. It was classic Tucker, vague enough to dodge blame, sharp enough to plant suspicion, a wink to his base, a warning to the rest. By the end, any illusion of unity was gone. The movement wasn't grieving together. It was fracturing, splintering into factions, each one claiming a piece of Charlie's ghost. His legacy had stopped being a cause. It had become a prop in a much dirtier, personal war. And just as the stages grew louder, so did the whispers behind the curtain. Candace Owens zeroed in on billionaire Bill Ackman, painting him as a shadowy puppet master pulling strings in the Hamptons. She claimed he summoned Kirk for an intervention over his increasingly critical stance on Israel and Netanyahu's war in Gaza. According to her, threats were made that night. Veiled warnings dressed as friendly advice. As always, she left enough wiggle room for deniability, but the seed was planted. Ackman struck back fast, posting screenshots of warm, respectful text exchanges with Kirk. No threats, no pressure, he said, just cordial talks, normal backroom politics. Andrew Cole, Turning Point's own executive producer, backed him up, calling the Hamptons meeting productive and cordial, not the sinister showdown Owens described. But here's the catch. In this climate, even denials feel like plot twists. For Owens' audience, every rebuttal is proof the cover-up is deeper. Every receipt only fuels suspicion that someone is scrubbing the truth. And this wasn't just about one billionaire. Kirk's wavering support of Israel had become its own trigger point, sparking paranoia across the right. Was money being dangled? Was support withheld? Were invisible hands shaping which voices rose and which ones got silenced? The paranoia spread like wildfire. Right-wing podcasts turned into dueling gladiator pits, each host trying to one-up the other. Some argued Kirk's shift away from hardline pro-Israel orthodoxy was the real reason he was targeted. Others called it nothing more than opportunists leeching off his tragedy, using his death to inflate their own audiences. The result wasn't clarity. It was a dizzying hall of mirrors, every reflection showing a different villain, every theory shadowing the last. Every new denial, every new rebuttal spins the conspiracy wheel faster and faster. Even Benjamin Netanyahu himself, yes, the prime minister, caught wind of how far the rumors had spread and felt forced to issue two separate denials. Billionaires, foreign leaders, and podcast hosts were suddenly locked in a full-scale battle over the legacy of a man whose body wasn't even cold yet. The spectacle was total. Lawmakers jumped in, and even a notorious doxing site started flagging and archiving comments, what critics called an active campaign to punish dissenters. But as the global intrigue played out on podcasts and in news columns, the real implosion wasn't happening online. It was happening inside the Kirk family itself. According to two sources close to the situation, some of Charlie's own relatives, his parents, a few in-laws, began whispering questions about Erica. Was she keeping secrets? Was her calm composure rehearsed? Were her statements too perfect to be real? Others in the family pushed back hard, insisting the rumors were baseless, that nothing mattered except shielding the children from a spectacle spinning out of control. No police filings, no on-record admissions, just the kind of tension that festers in a family when the world won't stop peering through the curtains. For Erica, it must feel like the worst kind of trap. On one side, Candace Owens hunting her online. On the other, a movement of supposed allies turning her grief into a public trial. Eric Bowling, still enough of an insider to speak plainly, frames it this way. Owens has always been down the rabbit holes. He tells anyone who'll listen she was cut out for a reason, not just as a liability, but as a grenade thrown into an already fragile scene. But even that sounds like its own warning. The Kirk family's silence no longer reads as dignified grief. It starts to look like self-preservation, a shield from an audience banging on the glass for answers, or maybe a shield from each other. Meanwhile, every public word from Erica, every vow, every careful statement now risks being read as either the last stand of decency or the calm before a far greater storm. And while the podcasts and eulogies fight for the loudest echo, Candace Owens keeps ratcheting up the stakes. She tells her millions that the entire case is federal-level corruption and a conspiracy at the highest levels. She insists the FBI pressured Utah authorities to pin Kirk's death on a convenient patsy, Tyler Robinson, even as gaps in the evidence and confused eyewitness accounts fuel her narrative. Owens rolls out a parade of reasons why the official story can't be trusted. No clear video of Robinson on the roof, timelines that don't make sense, witnesses swearing the shooter wore tactical gear. In her words, the authorities aren't just hiding the truth, they're building a cover-up that goes all the way to the top. I'm sure they're not coming out and being honest, she declares, spinning each missing piece into proof that someone powerful is pulling strings. We know who did this, and they're trying to protect those people. So close the case. Whether that's fantasy, calculation, or something darker, the momentum behind her grows stronger by the day, and the storm around Erica grows with it. The storm only grows louder. By the time the first week passes, it isn't just Candace Owens versus Erica Kirk. It's a full-blown civil war tearing through every corner of the conservative movement. Online, it looks like trench warfare. Clips of Erica's calm, perfectly measured statements trend alongside Candace's volcanic rants. Comment sections split down the middle, half defending Erica as a dignified widow under fire, half accusing her of hiding something sinister. The hashtags alone tell the story. Hashtag justice for Charlie, hashtag Erica knows, hashtag who pulled the trigger. Every new podcast, every new live stream adds more fuel. Candace keeps hammering the cover-up angle, demanding answers about Tyler Robinson, painting him as a pawn, a name chosen to close the case fast. And while her audience amplifies her words, Erica stays locked in her role, controlled, poised, refusing to snap. That silence is either her greatest strength or her greatest liability. Because in a world addicted to outrage, quiet starts to look like guilt. Behind the scenes, sources say the Kirk family fractures are widening. Some relatives privately lean toward Candace's suspicions, whispering that Erica's grief feels too polished. Others defend her fiercely, arguing she's just trying to protect her children from a nightmare circus. But the division itself becomes its own headline, because once the possibility of a split leaks out, the public pounces. Family whispers turn into online debates, and online debates snowball into conspiracy boards. Now, strangers argue over who in the Kirk household can be trusted. Meanwhile, Erica can't even show her face without being dissected. At a candlelight vigil, cameras zoom in on her hands, folded neatly, no tremor, no fidget. One viral post claims her body language screams rehearsal. At another event, she lets a single tear slip. Instantly, skeptics call it too late, too forced. Every blink becomes evidence. Every sigh becomes a headline. And the truth, Erica can't win. If she breaks down, she's acting. If she stays strong, she's cold. But Candace thrives on that same microscope. She takes to her show, voice shaking with emotion 1 minute, spitting fire the next. She claims the FBI has already tied its hands, calling the Utah investigation a prepackaged conclusion. She repeats that phrase like a mantra, prepackaged conclusion, and she teases unnamed insiders, hinting that someone close to Kirk has already slipped her information. Whether that's true or not, the hint alone sends her listeners into overdrive. The split becomes even sharper when other conservative voices start picking sides. Some, like Glenn Beck, try to play mediator, calling for prayer, for patience, for unity. But others smell blood. Smaller podcasters chase clicks by parroting Candace's theories. Hardliners and Turning Point circle the wagons, defending Erica, defending the official story, treating Candace as a traitor. What was once one movement starts looking like rival gangs. And Charlie's memory, it's not uniting anyone. It's the prize everyone is fighting to own. Even in Washington, the ripples are felt. A handful of lawmakers bring up Charlie's name in speeches, calling him a martyr for free speech. But the undertone is obvious. They're not just honoring him, they're staking claims on his audience, his brand, his influence. One congressman even goes viral for saying, if Charlie's voice is silenced, then it's our duty to speak louder. That soundbite gets clipped 1,000 times. But the irony isn't lost. Charlie's voice isn't being remembered. It's being repackaged. And while all of this plays out, Erica and Candace embody the split. The widow versus the outcast. Silence versus fire. Dignity versus rage. Each represents a different story of what Charlie's death means, and America can't look away. The media frames it as a battle of narratives. But to the millions watching, it feels more like a morality play. Who do you believe? The polished wife insisting the mission will carry on, or the furious former ally screaming that everything you're being told is a lie? By the end of week 1, the question has shifted. It's no longer just who killed Charlie Kirk. It's whose truth will survive. Erica stands as if carved from stone, shielding her children, shielding herself. Candace rages, microphone in hand, demanding that no one let this story die. The movement that once rallied behind Charlie has turned into a hall of mirrors, and every reflection is pointing in a different direction. And somewhere in the middle of it all, the ghost of Charlie Kirk lingers, not as a unifying figure, but as the spark that set the fire none of them can put out. Now the narrative is devouring itself. The very movement Charlie Kirk built is splintering under the crushing weight of accusation and counter-accusation. Online, the feud between the composed widow and the relentless avenger rages on. Each new podcast, each viral post, slicing the divide even deeper. Erica Kirk stands caught in the storm, half icon, half punching bag, doing everything she can to shield her children while the allies of her late husband claw for relevance, revenge, or their own slice of his legacy. The church pleads for calm, begging for prayer and dignity. But the podcasts, they only double down. Tucker Carlson spins new metaphors. Candace Owens stokes fresh suspicions. And circling at the edges is that haunting question. Was this about foreign influence, billionaire gamesmanship, or as Candace keeps hinting, something unthinkably close to home? This is scandal with no script. Chaos no one can control. Each side swears they hold the truth, but the deeper you look, the murkier it gets. We're left staring at the smoke rising from the ruins of a movement, a marriage, and a media empire, all undone by one shot in Utah. So what really happened that day on the Utah Valley campus? Was Charlie Kirk cut down by enemies abroad? Was he betrayed by insiders who saw him as a threat? Or was he undone by someone who knew him better than anyone? In a world where even grief is turned into content, who gets to write the ending? Now it's your turn. Tell us what you believe. Is this just another tragic political hit? Or is there a hidden story behind the headlines waiting to explode? Drop your theory in the comments. And make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with everyone you know. Because trust me, this saga isn't over, and nothing in it stays buried for long. See you on the next one.